Hi there, folks. It is a gorgeous day here in Rivendell. We've had so much snow lately. The past few days have pretty much been all about snow. Snow, shoveling more snow. Got to ride the plow, which was kind of cool. Um, in a recent video, I talked about the process of realizing that I was trans. And today I wanted to share a little bit about what came next, the process of coming out. I was 19. I'd been dropping hints for a while among family and friends, but the first time I actually referred to myself as transgender was to my employer, or supervisor, or I actually don't know who read it, but there was a form that we got for work, and there was a blank space on the form, and I wrote transgender in the blank. This was in Alberta, in Kananaskis Valley. I was working at a resort. Fun fact, Kananaskis is where they filmed Brokeback Mountain and X-Men 2, the Alkali Lake scenes. According to the gossip mill, one of my co-workers got fired for sleeping with Cyclops. So someone must have been reading those forms, because a buddy of mine from back in Nova Scotia told me that someone from HR had asked him if it was true that I wasn't a real girl. And he had said, yeah, that's about right. So other than that, it never came up at the resort. I didn't tell any of my coworkers. I had gotten in trouble in other places for being queer. Threats, physical violence, people pounding on my door in the middle of the night, and so I didn't want to push my luck. One day, while I was out at a bar in Calgary, someone asked my friend, I was out with some friends, and someone asked if I was this person's new girlfriend. And later on that evening, somebody else said that I was a good-looking guy. So I was enjoying being in this androgynous zone and noting how different people were interpreting my gender, that the men tended to think that I was a man, and the women tended to think that I was a woman. And later on in the night, I was sitting by myself, kind of looking at this hot woman who's sitting at the bar, and she gets up and comes over to me, and I start thinking, oh crap, I've been staring at her, now I'm that creepy guy who stares at people in bars, and she's seen me, but she sat down next to me, and she asked if I was going to be in Calgary next weekend, and I said, oh, I certainly can be. She said that a bunch of folks were having a get-together, and I should come along. She said, it's our people. I said, great, sure, I'll be there, yeah. Our people? She says, trannies. So, I booked the next Saturday off of work. It's not easy to get weekends off when you work at a resort. Weekends are the busy days, so I think I told them that I was going to a support group in the city, and to their credit, they gave me the time off with no questions asked. And before I went to the group, I figured that this would be a good time to come out to my mom. I thought that of all the people in my family, my mom, as an educated, feminist, lesbian, would be the easiest sell. I figured I might get away with just slipping it into the conversation. So the next time I called my mom, I mentioned that I was going to go to a get-together for trans folks. She took it okay. She said, you're not trans. I would know if you're trans, and you're not. Go to your meeting, go ahead, but just to be clear, you're not trans. I actually have proof that you're not trans, but I can't tell you what it is over the phone. Much later on, when I asked her what the proof was, she confessed that she'd made it up. She just thought that she had to say something to stall me, to keep me from running out and getting surgery right then and there, although I don't know how she expected me to do that in Kananaskis Valley, Alberta. But that was her fear. Now, I'd never actually met another trans person in person before that night in the bar that I knew of. I didn't know what to expect at the get-together. It's almost hard to imagine now now that trans folks are such a huge part of my life, but this, like, meeting other trans people was a really big deal. I wanted to make a good impression. There was only about 10 other people there. We were meeting in a pokey little second-story room. There was only one other person there who was female assigned at birth, F to M spectrum. We talked a lot about hormones. For most of the people in the group, like, people were very open talking about their bodies and medical this and that. And for most people in the group, getting surgery was such a long way off, was such an ordeal that they might be in the process of trying to get approval for surgery, but had no expectations of getting it anytime soon. So we talked a lot about hormones, because hormones were something that some of the folks in the group had actually managed to get approval for. So at the time, there was only 2 GPs in Alberta who were known to accept trans clients, and they both had very long waiting lists, over a year long. Once you saw the GP, then they would want to work with you for a year or more until they were convinced that you were trans, before they would consider hormones. And then they would refer you to the one endocrinologist in the province who would work with trans people. And this person also had a waiting list of over a year to get an appointment. And then after you met with the endocrinologist, you would have to take a 2-year real-life test. And this is a period in which you have to live as your chosen gender, holding down a job or going to school without medical assistance, without hormones, without surgery, to prove that you can. Then, according to the folks at this get-together, most people failed their real-life test. And some were able to do it a second time or a third time and eventually got hormones. If you were lucky, you might be able to get hormones in about 5 years. Most of this information was about male to female trans people. No one there knew any female-assigned trans person who had succeeded in getting approved for hormones in Alberta. So this was around 2007. So it became apparent that if I wanted to get hormones, I would have to leave Kananaskis Valley. But it took a little bit more incentive than that before I was ready to leave. I loved Kananaskis, and I really didn't want to move to a city. So I went home from that with a lot to think about. Now the next step, I had come out to my mom. That had been not quite as... it had been okay, not as good as I was expecting. The next step was coming out to my dad. Now, my mom hadn't reacted as well as I had hoped. My dad, I had no idea. I had expected that my mom would be the easier sell of the two, and so I was pretty anxious about talking to my dad. But you know what? That's actually... what happened when I did talk to my dad is actually a pretty good story, so I'm going to save that for another day to be a video on its own. Anyway, I guess that's all for today. So I will talk to you later, and I'll see you soon. Take care.